I've had several testers tell me that the previous video was, in their minds, one of the most important in the entire course. In fact, back-to-back testers pushed me to push you to watch it twice. Now, you may have finished the video and thought, yeah, I get that, or even I was already thinking along those lines, but getting it and thinking it are not the same as doing it. We see very few book marketers who consistently put together kits and pitches that will truly excite the media, that will truly get them saying the magic words. Our readers, viewers, listeners will love this. So here's the example I promised. There's more than one important lesson here, and I'm announcing ahead of time. I really like this story. I learned a lot from it when it happened. When Janet and Gretel launched Looney Spoons in the US, we decided to make radio a big part of our PR efforts. We had a great publicist working with us named Peg Booth. She's still around and helps a lot of the top nonfiction authors. Well, she knew what she was doing, and she put together an outstanding radio pitch kit aimed specifically at general interest talk shows. We thought she did a pretty darn good job of following the advice of the last video of creating a pitch that focused on the listener's needs. But despite that, and despite the fact Peg diligently followed up with calls, we generated very few bookings initially. Why? Simple reason. In most cases, even Peg's excellent kit couldn't overcome the various shows' producers' preconceived notion that cookbook authors just didn't make for good guests on radio. Remember, this was pre-Foodies Day. The decision makers felt with no visual aids, food conversations, especially around recipes, would come up flat, not have mass appeal. Plus, they argued phone-in segments could be a little dull. What can I use as a substitute for corn in my Aunt Betty's chili may not hold many audience members' attention. To be honest, you can see why they would think that way. Even with Peg's passionate pushing of Janet and Greta's unique charisma, we struggled to get past the producer's skepticism. After about 2 months of low success rates, Peg and I were brainstorming, and she said something that, as dramatic as it sounds, ended up changing everything. You know what's really frustrating, she noted? The interviews we do get the sisters are going over great. The hosts rave about them. Janet Parshall said they were phenomenal. Janet Parshall said they were phenomenal. That's nationally syndicated, widely known in the radio business, Janet Parshall. You can see where I'm going with this. I suggested Peg reach out to Janet and the other hosts who had praised the Podleskis and ask them for testimonials. Not their traditional testimonials about the book, but specifically about the sisters' skills in radio interviews. Simple idea. Here are some of the quotes we got back. Janet and Greta are two of the best talk show guests to come along in quite a while. They have all the ingredients for a 5-star radio show. Paul Gonzalez, The Paul Gonzalez Show. My time with them on radio is one of the most delicious hours I've ever spent in broadcasting. A true diet of hilarity. Janet Parshall. Janet and Greta were an absolute scream. Without a doubt, they were the brightest, funniest, most incredible guests of the entire season. Steve Hexum, KGRS. Wow. Important to note that all 5 hosts we asked were happy to help. And did you notice how fantastic the testimonials were? Hey, credit to Janet and Greta's abilities, but also these radio personalities are professional communicators. They know how to craft an endorsement. Well, we added the testimonial sheet to the kit and the results were unbelievable. Suddenly, when Peg's follow-up calls led to producers reading those quotes, we got booking after booking. As I said a moment ago, simple idea, but ridiculously effective. And we are still, to this day, one of the very few publishers that I've seen use this approach. In fact, I told this idea to one of the biggest nonfiction agents out there. He went on and on about it. But more interestingly, he has kept every PR kit used for every author he has ever represented. Not once had a publisher use testimonials from media members. Not once. He was shaking his head. Cripe, we've had self-publishers use this idea for 20 years now. It works. Remember, with any pitch, you're trying to prove to the producers that you can help them develop fresh, compelling, relevant to their audience content. Well, there's no better way to prove that than eyewitness testimony from their industry peers. Now, stick with me here because, as I promised, there's a second very important lesson in this story. When Peg mentioned to me that her calls were indicating that most producers weren't noticing the endorsement sheet without her drawing attention to it, I suggested moving it to the top of the kit's papers. We needed them to see it because it was so effective. We wanted them to see it in case we weren't able to get them on the phone. But she had an idea that turned out to be even wiser. She tested a number of packages consisting of only the testimonial sheet with a brief handwritten note at the bottom, a sample question sheet, and a book. No reviews, no press releases, no cover letter. Guess what? By far our best response rate. Smart woman, Peg. We started getting all kinds of requests for interviews with no follow-up calls even needed. Look at this. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. Each page in this binder, every single one of them represents an individual radio interview Peg booked for the sisters over that came. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sheets here. In fact, I think there's 510. Can you imagine that? Again, less is so often more. The testimonial pitch worked great. and adding too much to it diluted its effectiveness. After the first couple of months, we had a handful or maybe 2 handfuls of interviews. A few months later, we had this binder. I love this story.